thank you for joining us today. My name is Jennifer Hill, and I'm a biologist at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's National Conservation Training Center in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. And I also coordinate the Native Youth Climate Adaptation Leadership Congress, a week-long on-site program for Indigenous high school youth to grow in leadership development skills. We welcome your questions and comments anytime during today's broadcast by using the chat, or you can email them to broadcast@fws.gov. If we don't get to your comments or questions today, we'll do our best to follow up with you afterwards. Before introducing today's presenter, I would like to acknowledge that the National Conservation Training Center is located on the unceded ancestral homelands of many Indigenous peoples. While we could not find a full account, we are aware that many peoples traversed, cherished, and lived on this land. They include the Massawomack, the Haudenosaunee, the Shawnee, and the Delaware. As we learn more about the Indigenous peoples who continue to have relationships with this land, we better appreciate the good earth on which we work, live, and learn. We also pledge to grow and sustain relationships with Indigenous communities through collaboration on our training, outreach, youth programs, museum exhibits, and more. And we encourage you to learn more about the land on which you work and reside. Today, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Toni Jefferson. Toni is the Director of Human Resources for the Silver Reef Casino Resort. She is an enrolled Lummi Tribal member and lifelong resident of the Lummi community. Toni has progressively advanced her professional career within the casino gaming industry, possessing over 20 years experience. In addition, Toni has worked with the tribal government operations for over 12 years at the executive management and leadership level as Human Resources Director, Deputy General Manager, and General Manager. As the Lummi Indian Business Council General Manager, she was responsible for exercising lead executive authority and providing oversight to the Lummi Indian Business Council operations with 18 department directors and over 620 employees. Toni values and practices servant-based leadership while integrating the principles of the 3 Ps: people, place, and profit. Her unique experiences, in-depth expertise of the casino industry, direct knowledge of the Lummi community values, and executive experience in tribal government puts her in an excellent position to lead human resource management and services such as recruiting, assessing, developing, and maximizing team members within an organization. Today, we look forward to hearing from Toni about her expertise and her sharing her thoughts on recruitment and retention within Indigenous communities and what we as a federal agency or agencies, if you're joining us from outside the Fish and Wildlife Service, have learned from her knowledge. Toni, welcome and thank you for joining us today, and I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to share some information that I've gathered in my time in leadership positions. I think when it comes to, recruitment, it's kind of the silent priority. A lot of people don't necessarily speak a whole lot about it. Positions get posted and, they expect, that to be it. But really recruitment, needs to be intentional. You need to have a plan to develop networks for those, to come into your workforce. So those pipelines need to be developed. This past year here at the Silver Reef, we reduced our staffing levels down to 400 from 650. So due to COVID, we had to do a lot of layoffs. So we've been rebuilding our workforce. And I think a lot of people are familiar with the workforce market right now. It's been a challenge to get people to come in to work. So some of the strategies that we've taken, one, let me back up. Last year, we were able to change our compact to allow 18-year-olds to attend our casino and frequent our casino. As a result, that also opened the door for us to expand our labor market into the 18 to 21-year-olds for some positions that we had not offered before. And so this year we were very strategic and intentional with reaching out to all of the high schools and building relationships with their career counselors or people that were designated to help with that transition. And so we set up speaking engagements where we went to the school and we spoke to the youth, about career opportunities with the casino. A lot of people don't really understand or know a lot about the casino industry. They just typically think gaming, table games, and slot machines, but it's a very diverse industry. I mean, there's security, there's the hotel, there's the food and beverage. On top of the gaming, accounting, the cash cage, has some banking activities. So it's very well diverse. So you can learn a lot in the casino industry. But because, like I said, people don't know what all is involved when it comes to casino jobs. We're doing that outreach and planting those seeds at the high school level with these speaking engagements and sharing with them, what a typical job might look like for different positions, and then what kind of education they might need to receive in order to be hired into those positions, especially the more technical and professional positions. So we've done speaking engagements. We've worked with them to host on-site tours. So if they have a group of youth that would like to come and take a look at the facility, the back of the house, so they can it helps them visualize, what the employment might look like for them by just walking through and seeing what a typical day might look like. We're also working with the high schools for internships for 18-year-olds and older. And so that, that's an opportunity for them to come in and try out a position and see if it's something that fits what they would like to do at that point in time. So we'll be doing that this summer. And then all of the high schools, they typically have career fairs, job fairs. We are signed up to have a booth at all of those. Again, to bring awareness about employment opportunities, to make that connection. Same thing with the universities. We reached out to the colleges, the local colleges, technical colleges, and the Western Washington University, which is in our backyard, to be on their career fairs. And more specifically, like with the Culinary Institute, they have, in the springtime, they have like culinary cafes. So we have signed up to have a table at as many of those cafes as we can to just, again, make awareness. We're an employer, we're here, we're hiring, and to build that network. So it takes time. It has to be really intentional with regards to planting seeds and, letting people think about it. I know I was reflecting on some of the challenges, more challenging positions I held was as the tribal gaming director. And again, a lot of people don't know what tribal gaming does. It was really hard. We would post jobs and wouldn't get any applicants. And again, just having to be really intentional with recruiting, I would reach out to people and people that had, the right personality. Tribal gaming, for those of you that don't know, are the regulators, internal regulators of the casino. So they audit, they go around and make sure people are following the procedures. They're writing up reports for incidents. So it's a lot of observe and report. And, because a lot of people don't like being told how they're doing their job wrong or if they're doing the job wrong, it's not a very popular position. And so having the right personality to be able to do that job is critical in their success. So, going out into the local community and trying to find people that have that personality, that, have those skills, you have to do that outreach and you have to do that personal, hey, I think you would be a great agent. I see that you observe very well. You have great writing skills. And sometimes people just need to be told that, because if they look at a job description and, it's a lot of technical stuff that they don't know a lot about how it works, we need to take that time to educate them. So again, getting out into the community, you're not going to be able to sit behind a desk and just assume everyone is going to come to you, especially in this market. I know there's talk of a recession and maybe that will change things and jobs will be more in demand. But at this point, there's a lot of casinos and a lot of businesses doing hiring bonuses, doing what they can to get people in the door and into their positions. Some of the other resources or strategies, we have been hosting a job fair twice a month. Try to be consistent with that so that people know, what day is it? Oh yeah, it's a job fair for the casino. And even if the person isn't necessarily looking for a job, they might know somebody that is. And so having those job fairs where we have all the hiring managers on site, potential employees can walk in and look at the job postings that we have and sit right down with a hiring manager, say for a server, and get hired right there on the spot. And then we help them with the background check. We have the drug testing on site. And so we really streamlined the onboarding process. And so that's been fairly successful approach. So I know there's quite a few casinos that are doing job fairs regularly. And then there's been some county-wide job fairs. So those are also opportunities to be watching for. And again, even if you don't have positions, I think I saw one of the questions was talking about how 50% of your team is going to be retiring soon. And so even, again, just taking that opportunity for awareness, hey, we have great benefits. We might be having these positions coming up, in the next few years. This is the type of training that you will need. So again, it's just, the strategy needs to be short-term, intermediate, and long-term to address your staffing needs. I know there was talk about how to recruit in Indigenous communities. Every community is going to be different. So probably, I would suggest either going to if they have a website, going to their website and seeing what kind of services they have. And I'll use us as an example. Lummi, we have a K through 12 school. And so reaching out to the school, finding out who the career counselor is or who handles the career fairs, making sure to network with them, give them a call, get on their mailing list. So when they have those events, they'll send you a notice. Employment training centers. We have an employment training center where we offer free classes to those needing training, such as Word, Excel, Outlook. It's a resource to the community. So understanding if that tribe has an employment training center, you can get them on your mailing list and send them job announcements or internships. Our tribe also has a summer youth program. And so connecting with that coordinator, again, getting on their schedule. And I know that you may not be located near them, but I mean, with COVID, we definitely all got more used to this kind of correspondence, Zoom, webinars, Teams, so being able to do a presentation, and again, it's planting the seed in many cases, making people aware of your organization or your agency. You probably want to be clear about what your values are and expectations. So those are all kind of avenues, pipelines into communities. We do also have a tribal college, and so maybe doing some research for your area if there's any tribal colleges. What degrees do they offer? We do have a natural resource. Let's say it's a 4-year degree now at our college. So making a connection with them and getting on their agenda for either coming to visit or sharing internship opportunities. Those are all great avenues into tribal communities. It does take some research. You're going to have to take some time, poke around on the internet, or even call if they have a government like administration. Give them a call and ask them, hey, do you guys have, and then just go down that list. Do you have any of these services? And then get connected with them. In general, we also do, going back to the colleges in our area, and I assume it's pretty similar across the states. Most of the college and universities have their own job posting boards for their students. And so we have been able to set up accounts at Bellingham Technical College, Whatcom Community College, Western University, and we post all of our jobs that we think are relevant for those students. Another place to post is the State Department of Security. You can set up an account with them and post your jobs on there. And Craigslist. Craigslist is another resource. You can also look at, with Facebook, they have, at least for our area, they have like a Bellingham Jobs, they have a Ferndale Jobs. These are local towns. And they have a Whatcom Community Jobs page. And so you can also post job announcements there, internships, or job fair if you're having it. So there's a lot of resources out there. It does take a lot of time to kind of get it set up, setting up the accounts, but the maintenance, for the most part, is pretty easy. You just go in and you extend your job posting or you change the dates on it. So that makes it kind of nice. So you set it up on a schedule, maybe like every month or every quarter you go in and refresh it. Let's see. I want to say that's kind of it for. Oh, there was one other suggestion. So tribes are, we're very diverse, and I know there's always all kinds of events going on for the different areas, like housing, IHS, the education system. So, maybe taking a look at your area and see if a tribal event is going to be held in your area. That might be a way to connect with some of the leadership of the tribe if they're going to be in the area, say, and you could share information about your agency or about employment opportunities or careers, and then you can ask them as a, like who might be best to talk to in the tribe for that. So, kind of moving on. So the barriers. I know there's a question about barriers with employment, and there are quite a few. From what I've seen here at the casino, and even with the tribe. Um, with the casino, the background check is really one of the barriers. We are a community in healing. We have our challenges with drugs and alcohol. And in order to be able to allow to support our people in recovery, we have to understand that background exists. And so when it came to the casino, those dang mobsters in the 1980s, gave us a bad rap. And we're really like one of the most heavily regulated industries now. And so people have to pass a stringent background check for a cook or a dishwasher. And a lot of people don't understand it. We do have to take time to educate them that, it's not just a cooking job, it's a cooking job in a casino. And our primary, commodity is cash. So, yes, it does take a little bit, but we do try to streamline it so it's not as painful with the background check process. But in many cases, when it comes to our people, some that are in recovery, they have a lengthy background finding. And so we set up an appeal process. So, with that being said, the director denies the license, but then they have a right to appeal it to the gaming commission, which consists of 5 community members. And then they make the determination. The person gets to come in and they get to say what's different. They get to say what they've done differently and how they've changed, what steps they've taken to stay on the right path. And then the commission can decide to either grant or deny the license. And in many cases, they provide a waiver, a conditional license. And so that's an example of a barrier that existed that we as the community were able to develop a policy to overcome that barrier for our people. Driving is another barrier that comes up. Our casino is not on the bus line, and so it does make it very challenging to for people who don't have vehicles to get here. And that is a barrier that we're still trying to explore how to overcome. And we talked about maybe running a shuttle to the local hotels, and then maybe those be points where people can jump on as employees to get back. So that's still a barrier that we're taking a look at, exploring different options. Yeah, I mean, getting a car, people fall into these vicious circles of, having a suspended license, then they lose their license, and then they can't work, so they can't pay their fines. And so it's just really a vicious cycle. That really probably needs to incorporate a bigger audience, more the judicial system, and, what they're trying to achieve is not working. It's really making it worse. Retention. So retention is always a challenge, I think, here at the casino. For my master's program, I did an assessment based on the Hofstede value study. I'm not sure if anybody knows that, but the Dutch researcher collected questionnaires, responses from 117,000 people in more than 50 countries to identify values. useful to cross-cultural management. Hofstede originally described 4 dimensions of national cultural values, to which a 5th was added later, and I believe a 6th now. So this research I did was back in 2012. And, I always suspected there was something, there was something different with the values of the Silver Reef versus the government. We've always hovered around 21% tribal representation here at the casino. And we employ up to, we want to get back to 600 plus. And then the tribe employs about 650. And their retention rate is 55%. And so when we take a look at the different policies that we have in place and how the policies are reflective of the values, I can clearly see why, tribal members, this isn't a good employment fit for tribal members, because it doesn't necessarily meet the values that that we possess as a community. Let me see if I can pull this up. So when we're talking about, organizational values, that is a key component with recruiting people, that have the same values and the same desire for the mission. So I think understanding the differences in the different cultures and the value systems that they have is important. It's important for you as an organization to know, but it's also important for the applicant or the candidate to also know what your organizational values are and how you might differ. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think it helps with retention, because, if people understand the differences and the value, the mission is more important than, say, a specific value, they might be willing to forego that value for the mission of the organization. But, it's up to them to make that decision. And so the cultural dimensions, so he came up with 5, and again, this is in 2012. The power distance is the extent to which the less powerful member of the institution and organization within the country expects and accepts that power is distributed unequally. And so the examples were, the low power distance is the United States and Canada. The high power distance is Japan and Singapore are examples. Individualism and collectivism. Individualism describes a culture in which the ties between individuals are loose. Collectivism describes cultures in which people are integrated into strong, cohesive groups that protect individuals in exchange for unquestionable loyalty. And so individualism examples are US, Australia, Great Britain, Hong Kong, and Mexico. Masculinity, femininity. Masculinity pertains to the cultures in which social gender roles are clearly distinct. Femininity describes a culture in which social genders roles overlap. So example of masculinity is Japan, Australia, and Italy. Femininity is Sweden, Norway, and the Netherlands. Uncertainty avoidance. Uncertainty avoidance is the extent to which the members of a culture feel threatened by certain or unknown situations. So low uncertainty avoidance is Singapore, Jamaica, and Denmark. Examples for high would be Greece, Portugal, and Japan. And then this is the Confucian dynamics. Denotes the time orientation of a culture defined as continuum with long-term and short-term orientation as it's two poles. So the long-term example is China and Japan. The short-term is the United States and Canada. And so this is kind of the overview, but I wanted to show how, I took this information and applied it to my tribe, and then the policies that we have at our tribal government versus Western society and the policies that we had at the time with our casino. And so when you take a look at the people that you serve, our government serves our Lummi community members. The government exists totally to serve the Lummi community members. The casino exists to serve the Lummi community, but also the bigger population of Western society and some other cultures, but primarily. And so trying to understand why it was so challenging for us to get above 20%. I took a look at and figured out that, for Lummi, we're more collectivism. We come from longhouses. The contribution to the longhouse, to our house, is a result of everyone's contribution, not just one person. With Western society, there's more individualism. Work independently, live independently, and so that's definitely a value that we don't necessarily align together. So low on uncertainty avoidance, high on uncertainty avoidance. We're a fishing community, and so I'm not going to say that we don't work without rules, but our rules are more in line with nature, and we go and we work when needed, as opposed to just like a standard schedule, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And so that's kind of why I selected enjoys working with few rules. It's more of a demand when the resource is available: fishing, crabbing, clam digging, harvesting. And then, Western society, again, very clear rules. When you take a look at the casino, we're heavily regulated. We have a ton of internal controls. Every position has a procedure to follow. At the government, not so much. A lot of our jobs we have job descriptions, but many of them are outdated. The procedures are typically passed down through oral discussion. And so that's kind of where another difference is. Medium power distance. We're both pretty clear, I think, on who leads and follows. In the organization, there's a chain of command. Same thing with the tribe. There's a chain of command of, who reports to who. Feminine society. I said Lummi, we value life, relationships, nurturing behavior towards people and society. And then masculine society values more, monetary things, tangible things. So that's kind of a difference here, I think, as well. At the casino, we're about the bottom line. Money gets transferred over to the tribe, and then the tribe spends it based on, the needs of the people. Synchronous with regards to orientation to time versus sequential. We value relationships of the past and present. Time, if viewed as more flexible and less definite. Versus Western society, focuses on the present or the future, values schedule, keeping appointments. When I took a look at the different policies for the tribe versus the casino, there was like 6 pages for attendance. For the tribe, there was like a half a page. And I'm not saying one way is right or not. I think it's just understanding that there's a difference, and there's going to be a need for a difference, especially, again, taking a look at who you're serving. the tribe serving the people versus the casino serving the greater population. And so, yes, it's important for people to be on time to be able to provide this service. Whereas at the tribe, a lot of the work there, can be put on hold um, or can be done, at a different time. So there's some flexibility. But I think where I'm going with this is just understanding, what is your agency or your entity's values, and then understanding, the people that you're recruiting. And so when you talk about having representation within your departments, it's important to have a reflection that is similar to society, because it's who you serve. You're serving, the United States people, and then making sure that you have an agency that supports and is sensitive and understands to some extent the people that you're providing the service to is important. And so I thought that was relevant. But let me go back to my notes. I think that was kind of all I had to touch on. I know there's a few questions. Maybe just going back to those policies. We established a work group with the government of representations from different areas to help provide input on the policies and shape them. Because everybody, sitting at the table has a different lens. And so it's important to have those discussions so that we can establish the best policies for the people that we're employing as well as serving. Okay, I'm done now.
Thank you, Toni. I'm glad that you shared this information with us. And for our participants, I know, most of our participants that join in, they're federal employees. So it may be a stretch for them to relate to some of this information if we think in terms of our federal box. But I wanted them to hear this information, especially when you showed the comparison of the Lummi values and the Western values, and how you worked through those comparisons. I felt that was really relevant for people to start thinking in those ways when they're going to approach whatever tribe is in their area, to start contemplating those types of thought processes and how are they going to approach that tribe, and consider the best types of engagement with those communities, and how would they work with them in the future if they were able to recruit a young student. What would that working relationship look like? So just being cognizant of that, I think, is really important. I know that the federal government is slow to change, and changing our policies on hiring is a slow process. But I think it's really important for people in the field to think this way, and maybe there could be ripple effects of change. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. We do have questions, and I would encourage those of you that are on the call to please enter your questions into the chat while we start off with some of the questions we do have now. Let's see here. I think you kind of addressed this, but maybe you could elaborate a little more, Toni, on describing some of the Lummi values that you think might be different from the federal workplace. If you might have anything you could share to that.
Yeah. So again, the government, has a little more flexibility when it comes to the services that they provide. And it's almost like they're expected to have this to carry the same values that the community has. So an example is bereavement leave. Our bereavement leave and our bereavement process is very thought out and intentional to help us heal. And so the family comes together, and in our policy, we have our full family circle included and like qualifying for bereavement leave. So it's not just mom, dads, brothers, sisters. It's mom, dads, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, grandma, grandpa. Um, it's everyone. If we have a loss, then our community values taking the time to process that and heal from it. We also extend that into the helpers of the family, so the head cooks, the grave diggers, the dressers. So there's a whole group of support people who support the process that are also allowed to take bereavement leave to provide for that service. And I would suspect that the federal agency does not have uh, that extensive bereavement leave. So that's an example. One example. Another one would be probably cultural ceremony. When people go into CO, and we allow for time off for that. I'm not sure if the government would. I mean, we allow up to like a month and even longer for certain situations. So, again, just another value that we possess as a community, but it can't be afforded here at the Silver Reef. And so, having to understand that's where, like, knowing your value systems and maybe even different internally, for different reasons. I think helping explain and understand that is a big step into making sure that we recruit the right people into the organization.
Right. Yeah, I think just having awareness and conversations so that it just lays everything out there and shows that even if maybe things aren't always achievable or you're not able to do it all, you're at least aware and trying to find a balance.
Yes.
Let's see here. Another question is, we've had trouble maintaining relationships with Indigenous communities. It doesn't say why, but they do ask, how do you suggest we foster long-term relationships? Oh, maybe this is why. When we are not regionally or locally close to the groups we hope to engage with.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the earlier conversations about the pathways or the pipelines in, if they have a school, if they have an employment training center, um, again, just calling that tribe's administration building. I know people move around, and so you might have had a connection, and then they move to a different position, and there's a new person in there that you'll need to reach out to. So getting those tribes administration buildings, main phone numbers, and doing some outreach that way.
Okay. And maybe if you have if your station or your unit has the capability or the staff, having a coworker with you that could carry on, if you move on, they could carry on that relationship. So you're not the sole person developing that relationship that can carry on if one of you were to be relocated.
Mm-hmm. We usually have an email network, or like a email group that we email out, our job fairs, and we're only an office of 5, but all of us have it. So That way, if I win the lottery tomorrow, I'm calling in, rich. Somebody else could pick up the work. So
Next question is around Indian preference hiring authorities. So tribes, they're able to hire tribal members before hiring a non-tribal member. Can you discuss the Indian preference hiring authorities and ways we can better, ways the federal government could better use this concept to promote diversity and inclusion and accessibility in the workplace? Do you have, I don't know if you might have any ideas on that in the federal workplace, since you haven't, yeah, you may or may not.
yeah, no, when I worked for the HR department for the government here, um, we had to be very thoughtful about our onboarding process because we did have a few qualified, minimally qualified tribal members that were not being considered, and they were being passed over for maybe more experienced non-tribal. And so we had to put in a where HR did the screening, and then we would tell them who they get to interview. And then if they decided against that minimally qualified tribal member, the interview team had to put in writing why. Why is this person not being considered? Why aren't you hiring them? And they had to put it in writing, and that made it more transparent, made it more accountable. Um, they really had to clearly articulate why are we passing up this tribal member, um, when they meet the minimum qualifications for the position. They should be afforded an opportunity. So that is an example. Take a look at your selection process, your screening process, and maybe you can put in a layer in there to help ensure that that policy is followed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. A comment came in. As a tribal member, I often feel the burden of explaining my cultural values when it comes to leave and why it's important. So thanks for stating the awareness aspect.
Sure.
Okay, I've heard that talking about recruitment in Native American communities can be seen negatively by tribes because some tribes struggle to maintain staff and lose members when they move away for jobs. How should we approach this when recruiting for internships that offer hiring authorities?
Yeah, I feel that. We're all here competing with each other for talent. I think in that aspect, for those tribes that are particular, again, taking a look, do they have a school, planting that seed early on, about career opportunities. And, that might be a win-win, so then that way you're not necessarily, threatening their workforce by taking it, but you're, potentially thinking long term, and providing their youth with diverse employment opportunities as well.
Yeah. Let's see. There was another question I wanted. I'm trying to scroll through on a very small little box. Is it okay for me as a mid-level employee working on recruitment to reach out to my local tribes about opportunities / to make connections for the purpose of recruiting and building partnerships? I come from a planning background, and in that field, it was important to have a senior level government official make contact with tribal governments.
So just, from speaking with my tribe, for bringing awareness to career opportunities, you don't need a high level. Um, Usually the high level, senior level, that's really important when it comes to government discussions, consultation, compact negotiations, that definitely needs to be handled at the council level. But if you're recruiting and your intention is just to make awareness of employment opportunities with your agency, um, again, going back to the beginning of the discussion, the high schools, the colleges, the employment training centers, even the human resource office. I know we would get employment opportunity notices on a regular basis, and we were requested to post it in our office. So then that way, when people come in looking for a job, um, that might be a job that is a better fit for them. So why would we not want that for our people?
Yeah, I think, and that ties to knowing, knowing your tribal community members in your near your field station or your unit, knowing those communities and how they want to be reached out to, how they want to be worked with,
Mm-hmm.
and engaged with. So that goes to knowing your audience and your neighbors.
Right.
Let's see. What is your advice for outside non-tribal recruiters coming into Lummi or Indian country to recruit talent for jobs? I guess general advice for non-Indigenous folks wanting to recruit.
Yeah, it's looking for those natural pathways. Again, if there's tribal colleges are great. Universities, taking a look at those avenues. And then again, getting networked with them. When's your career fair day? I know Western, is a very large university, and they have, a natural resource college. They have an education college. They have a business college. So it's a group of colleges. And so finding out like when is their natural resource career fair day? Are there speaking engagements or activities that you can go attend and bring awareness to your employment opportunities? Same thing with high schools, reaching out to high schools and finding out when their career days are. Those are natural pathways, um, and that more generalized, not specifically singling out current employees.
Yeah, yeah, letting them know about the future possibilities, and priming them for what they may need to focus on if they're going into higher education, into college, and they're interested in certain career pathways, what types of college classes they need to look for, um, helping them guide them that way.
Hmm.
Um, I know an example for us for the Native Youth program that we run, we've had a hard time getting a seasonal type help with Indigenous youth, helping us with our planning for the Congress that we run. So this year we did it remotely. So the individual can stay on the reservation and work with us remotely, but they only need to come out with us for 2 weeks or like 2.5 weeks before the event and help us conduct the event. So that way they can stay in their community, help do what they need to do at home, and only be away for a short time. But they still get that benefit of being involved with the program that goes on their resume. It helps them, with their career development. So that was our way of kind of finding that balance. Not a lot of people want to come to West Virginia.
Come see the eagles.
Yeah, they could come see the eagles and the beautiful green trees. All right. Well, we are almost at the top of the hour, and I think that is I think we got most of the questions. I don't see anything else coming into the chat. So I guess we will wrap up. Toni, I want to just thank you again for sharing with us today. I hope that the participants, were able to pick up some pieces of knowledge here and there and can take some of these thoughts with them the next time they go out and maybe do some recruiting, or they're thinking about developing a job announcement or an internship. We appreciate your time, and we hope all of you can join us next month for our next broadcast. To be determined on the title, so be on the lookout for that at the beginning of May. And as a reminder, each broadcast is recorded and available on NCTC's website. If you'd like to learn more about the broadcast series or be added to the outreach list, just email myself at Jennifer_Hill@fws.gov. Thank you for joining us today.